There is one thing that everyone completely ignored, and it is that as soon as Ukraine receives these long-range missiles, they will be able to attack Crimean Bridge, and hold on a second, they don't even need to enter the peninsula itself. And Russians most likely started to assume this as well. That is why they're like, okay, it's Hail Mary time, that is why they prepare for the maximum escalation. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And so our first video comes to us from the ex-Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Alexander Mirnyuk, where literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash were found inside his sofa. This guy was one of the main suspects about the case, where the food for the Ukrainian army was purchased at 2, 3 or even 10 times higher than the market price. And right now he is being prosecuted. Our next video comes to us from Donbass, and the exact location is not specified, where we can see this Russian robot mini-tank called Marker, developed by Dmitry Rogozin and his team, which is supposed to eliminate Western tanks, such as Challengers, Leopards and Abrams. I'm not entirely sure how this mini-machine will be able to eliminate full combat tanks, but this is what they say their main purpose is. And speaking about the tanks, Spain, which earlier pledged its own Leopards to Ukraine, is no longer will be sending them due to very bad condition. But instead, they're offering 20 of its M113 armored personnel carriers. And now, speaking about armored personnel carriers, here is another picture of American Bradleys, which arrived to Ukraine and they're getting closer every single day. And ultimately, Italy also pledged some of its SAMP air defense systems to Ukraine. They are expected to arrive to Ukraine within 7 to 8 weeks, and two best things about these specific systems is that they can intercept ballistic missiles and that they can also intercept 10 other aerial objects at the same time. But nevertheless, the most crucial and long-awaited munition that is expected to arrive in Ukraine in the near future are those GLSDB Long Range Missiles. And we did talk about them in more details in my previous episode, and I even showed you this map which shows the comparison between current HIMARS missiles and the long-range ones. And as you can see right here, the new estimated range, which is highlighted in red color right here, it pretty much takes almost 30% of the entire Crimean Peninsula. But what I, or pretty much no one else yet, took into consideration is that Ukraine would not even need to enter the peninsula itself and bring their HIMARS systems closer in order to attack Crimean Bridge. Ukrainians can actually do it from Zaporozhye. As you can see right here, the distance between the southernmost point of Berdyansk and Crimean Bridge is 148 kilometers. And guess what? The range of GLSDB missiles is precisely only 150 kilometers. Or next to Berdyansk is another settlement called Naberezhnaya, and the distance to Crimean Bridge is also under 150 kilometers. And if we zoom into the bridge itself, we can see that pretty big part of it is within the range for these long-range missiles. Oh, and almost forgot. One good thing about these new missiles is that they can attack at different angles, unlike the current HIMARS missiles, which can only attack vertically. And with the help of 250 pounds warhead, according to the manufacturer Saab, this will definitely be very beneficial in case Ukrainians would want to try to target the foundations of Crimean Bridge. And by the way, you guys loved so much these videos about these missiles, that is why I decided to find even more and upload them on my Patreon. And I personally think that these new videos are even better. And yes, 1 week free trial for my Patreon is still available, that is why if you want to see these videos for yourself, the links will be down below. And so yes, in case Ukrainians decide to attack the Crimean Bridge, most likely this attack will be as unexpected as the first one. And if you don't want to miss this exact day whenever it happens, just please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube. Alright, and before I give you a humiliating update for Wagner from the east, let me briefly talk about a ridiculous statement by Putin. So, in the anniversary for Stalingrad battle, Putin gave a speech, and just like YouTubers say it, I've seen it all, so you don't have to. And I mean, you didn't miss much, but here are the main statements. And the first one, as he said, is that just like in the 1940s, the German tanks are once again threatening the sovereignty of Russia. And I mean, yeah, but circumstances are much different, just how tables turned. Then he said is that in response to all these Western weapons that are being supplied to Ukraine, Russia will respond with more than military vehicles. Which is, long story short, just another empty nuclear threat. And the third one is that Russia is ready to go all the way until the end, because truth is on our side, and Russia has a lot of international friends, which you can count on your fingers of one hand. But okay, and now as promised, this is this humiliating for Wagner update from the east. And if you remember from my yesterday's episode, Wagner reported that they were able to liberate a small settlement called Sako and Vanseti. They even gave us this picture as a proof, but the only problem is that the estimated population of this settlement is 3 people. And judging by this destroyed house in the background, most likely they destroyed the only remaining house in this entire settlement. But it didn't end there, because today Wagner gave us another video of another liberated settlement in Donetsk called Nikolaevka. But on a serious note, this last night there was another artillery strike of Russians against Kramatorsk. And as a result of this, a residential building has been partially destroyed. And then as we move even more to the south, even more loud noises have been reported in Mikilske. Alright, and now let's refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, because according to them, Russians continue their offensive operations along Svatove-Crimean Road in order to regain the lost positions. They also mentioned that there is a severe fighting to the east of Bakhmut, but there is fewer and fewer Wagner soldiers, which pretty much confirms the previously made statement is that Russia replaces its army with regular conventional soldiers rather than Wagner soldiers. Next we go to Marinka, where reportedly Ukrainians were able to repel all of Russian attacks. And ultimately, Russians continued to bring reinforcements closer to Vuhledar, though their offensive slowed down, and reportedly Ukraine was able to stabilize the situation. And now let's briefly take a look at this map, which shows us the changes in territorial control. And as you can see right here, Russians were able to advance to the north of Nova Bakhmutivka. And as we move to Bakhmut itself, here is how the front lines have been changing in the last several days. As we move to the south, Russians continued to take measures to prevent Ukrainians from taking the control over these islands on Dnipro River, but these measures were unsuccessful. Then we go to Crimea, where in the last several days a Ukrainian partisan activity has been reported. And ultimately, according to Natalia Gumenyuk, Russia is allegedly preparing for another mass attack because there has been an increase in activity of Russian ships in the Black Sea. Which, to be honest, might become the first step in this maximum escalation, the Hail Mary, that Russians are so desperately trying to do. And speaking about this maximum escalation, we already talked about it yesterday, but today we have some more intriguing details. The first one also came to us from the Institute for the Study of War, and it says that Putin is trying to spread out Ukrainian forces across the entire front line and thin their defenses. The first and the main idea here is that Russia is still desperately trying to show the activity in the north in order to achieve this relocation of Ukrainian forces from the south and the east to the north. And allegedly, Russia might even attempt some small raids from Belgorod, Kursk and Bryansk regions to make it look more convincing. But I mean, at this point, there is not a single person with a basic common sense who believes that Russia can invade and open the brand new front line in the north. But even if Ukraine will not believe this bluff, this whole activity serves two purposes. The first one is that Ukraine will still have to take this threat seriously and to relocate at least some of its forces. And the second one is that Russia will be able to do informational operation inside Russia in order to boost the popularity of this war among regular people. And then we also have this activity in Vuhledar, which looks a little bit more promising to Russians, which is, by the way, also another attempt of Russians to disperse the attention of Ukrainians and bring them away from the east. And one of the main hopes of Russians is that Ukrainians will take this bait, reduce the number of their soldiers and attention in the east, and then Russians somehow victoriously will be able to advance to Bakhmut, Liman, and to even Slavyansk and Kramatorsk in the future. We even have this statement by the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, which says that Putin has ordered its army to fully capture, liberate as they say it, Luhansk and Donetsk regions in March. And as a proof, they pretty much bring exactly the same statements. Which is, first of all, is the increase of activity of Russians in the north and in Vuhledar, and this is done in order to disperse the attention of Ukrainians. And second is that Russians are bringing more and more reinforcements, including personnel and military vehicles and equipment, to the east. And in case Russians decide to proceed with this low chances of success plan, this will be their Hail Mary. And the reason why? It is because they're bringing so much attention, so much people into this. This is going to be pretty much their final major attack. And in case they fail and lose here as well, this will be irrecoverable defeat for Putin himself. He already promised so many things, but the only result he was able to give to the people of Russia is the capture of Soledar after more than 6 months. And that is why I don't think that neither the regular people of Russia nor the elite will be able to tolerate another miserable fail of their president. All this is expected to happen within the next several months, and if you don't want to miss any of this as soon as it starts happening, just please once again consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes one click. And if you want to support my work financially, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where there is still 1 week of free access. You can find all the other useful links to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.